We do let the guest start, so what is good in CS at the moment, mate?
I wanted to start by talking about the Mongols. I think it's a topic that obviously is a big conversation right now, but I think it's probably now no longer a debate that I think, at least in my opinion, are the best sort of Asian Counter-Strike team of all time. And, for me, I've not been around in terms of the historical knowledge, especially compared to you guys. So I don't know as much when it comes to contextualizing the depth of the scene. But, when I've been looking and doing my research around it, the contenders being the WMF, the We Made Fox side back from 1.6. And then there was another team even before that as well. I forget the even name now, but they were back in like the 2010s winning S tier sort of events. And I want to talk about kind of the Mongols at the moment being sort of what their run has looked like for the last year. This is a side for me that I've looked kind of continuously fantastic. I was covering them back when kind of, I guess the core was different back then, but I've been following this team for a long, long time now, doing a lot of kind of the tier 2, tier 3 Asian Counter-Strike scene. I've been kind of, I think now on Asian ECL, for example, for the last 4 years. So this is kind of even before the Mongols were really taken off back in like 2021 when they weren't even really in the picture. And yeah, I've been liking what I've seen from them. Oh, WMV Teamwork was the other team I was thinking about. But yeah, you look at the Mongols now and their continued growth. And I was looking, especially when they won EWC, which is obviously one of the big topics. They're the first Asian team in CSGO/CS2 to win a big event, which is first and foremost awesome to see. We've had a couple of close calls and a couple of teams that have made decent runs, but nobody's been now for the last sort of 10 or so years, if not even longer, anywhere near the level that the Mongols are playing, especially for the age that these guys are at. And you look at kind of recently now, you got a decent trophy in Yala. There was some okay teams there, and I think it was probably a stepping stone, but now a really legit EWC under their belt as well, taking down Vitality. And sure, I think there's definitely arguments to be made that Vitality are not at the strength that they were at the start of the year, but regardless, their year's been fantastic. Where second place at the major, we're talking second place at Blast Bounty, top 4 at Melbourne, top 4 at Dallas. Like, there's a consistent string of like really good results for a team very, very young that are proving that it isn't kind of that fluke anymore for me. And I really like what I'm seeing from this side. I was even checking as well. So 2 years ago when this core was formed, they were ranked outside of the top 50, and they've only consistently got better and better, and they've kept proving kind of their worth. So I'm loving what I'm seeing for the Mongols. I think it's a good thing as well that we see just in general Asian representation within the top level of Counter-Strike. This is a region that has been kind of underrepresented for a long time. I mean, even if you want to include Renegades in that, they were a decent team, but I think that obviously that consistency was a big form that they lacked, and Mongols are now proving it. And even previous teams like Vici and Yatailus and whatnot, they never were able to really crack in towards where the Mongols are now. They're a legit top 3 team currently in the world, especially ranking wise, and are looking sick for me. And I think this is a position where they can actually keep building on this, again, coming back to how young they are. So I'm loving what I'm seeing. So for me, a good point is the Mongols being the best Asian team of all time, and also as well, it's really good just for the Asian scene as a whole to have a representative. And we've seen what it's done for Mongolia as a scene, but also Asia as a whole as well. Tournaments cropping up, a lot more viewership coming through every single tournament. It feels like even just the VWC just now, they just broke again for like the 4th time in a row the Mongolian viewership record. It was like a 10th of the population were watching, a lot of which as well were in person in Ulaanbaatar, in kind of their square, watching it until like the early morning. So you can see what impact it's having on the country. It's becoming a worldwide thing. Even when I was there a few months ago in Mongolia, we just walked into a random internet cafe and there was quite literally like 200, 300 kids all playing Counter-Strike, nobody playing anything else apart from one dude that was gambling. So apart from that,
so it is real, because people say it's like CS just is the game everyone plays there anyway. Is it actually to do with partly to Mongols, or is it like just a thing there anyway, do you think?
Literally, so like it was like me, Henry, Dinko, Prof, Parla, Blair, we all kind of walk in towards just a random internet cafe just because it was just sort of near where we were getting lunch. Walk in, there's like 4 massive PC rooms, like 50 plus PCs each per room. Everybody's playing Counter-Strike, and I'd say more than half of them are wearing Mongols jerseys as well. You look around, and it's like, even there's like a bit, like I caught on a bit of a vlog where it's like I was filming these 5 guys playing CS, just random 5 guys that were just there. All 5 of them had Mongols as profile pictures. Like, it just is just now what is a big thing for them. You see as well when you're walking around Ulaanbaatar, it's like Mzinho kind of being like the poster boy for like an internet company, and like Senzu being like a mobile phone company. Like, they are just a legit sort of celebrity factor in a way in Mongolia, and it really has become a big thing. And even like their president was watching them win EWC the other day from home, and that video got kind of shared around sort of Asian channels, and they don't really use Twitter as much, but it was like a big video that got shared of like their president celebrating them live winning EWC. So it's pretty mental, like how big it's got for the scene. But also, I was in China like a few months ago doing like an EWC qualifier, and even then, like speaking to some of those teams as well, they're saying that like because of the Mongol success, their region's now not being seen as a bit of a joke as it was in the past, and like even the tier 2 guys feel like they've got legitimized, and when they're competing and people are actually showing them respect, they're getting a lot more pracs, opportunities to come over towards Europe to boot camp properly and get the scrims that they want, and they kind of equate a lot of that to how well the Mongols are doing and showing that this region now is legit. So I'm loving what I'm seeing for the Mongols, basically.
I mean, first off, I feel like the Mongols and what they've accomplished as becoming an elite team is extremely impressive, because it actually feels rare that you get a team where the progress is so linear, where clearly at the beginning when they were IHC, they went from being qualifying for the majors already good enough, maybe they win one game when they're at some of these majors, to then replacing a couple of their players, most notably the Bartek for Mazinho swap, where it was just such a gamble to bring in his brother or his younger brother, and then they actually get better, and it feels like they're just consistently improving. So it's seeing consistent improvement. The people that I have to credit most are generally the IGL and Blitz, and then the coach in Mara. I don't know what he's bringing. They've even kind of remarked on the fact that he's not the most tactical in-game leader. I feel like more of it is probably coming from Blitz and Techno, but then also on the individuals for being able to receive that sort of information or being able to learn on their own enough to improve. I will add some caveats now, though, because I think the distinction is important, even though culturally we see East Asia as a completely separate region. I think the debate is still out if they're the best Asian team ever. I mean, Gambit technically is an Asian team. When they won the major, they had a Kazakh flag behind them. Even on HLTV, if you look back at those grand finals, I mean, Kazakhstan is in Asia, but like culturally, I think we perceive Kazakhstan more like Eastern Europe, just because
politically they are as well.
Yeah, they associate
all that jazz, you know.
Yeah, they associate a lot more heavily with that side of things. So I also have made the mistake very frequently in the past, just kind of like not associating with them being. It's weird to say they're an Asian team, that James has played on Asian teams his whole life. Like no one would really say that, even if the majority of his teammates were Kazakhstan at his peak. So, well, maybe not the Rio Major, of course, but you know what I mean for Vanguard and the Gambit roster, or those kind of rosters back then. So yeah, I mean, but through and through with how the Mongols have played and their individuals. I mean, I was going to make it my good point, just how great Techno was at EWC. I look back at some of his demos, and I've looked at Techno demos in the past, or just really keyed in on him when watching matches, because for me, he's the guy that is never really getting the credit. In fact, I felt like pundits frequently would cite Techno as the weak link of the roster. And to me, that was always a stats-driven argument more than an eye test-driven argument. I very rarely, occasionally you would see Techno get run over on his bomb sites. It does happen. It's going to happen to every anchor in Tier 1, period, because if there is a new execute that's hitting you and the flashes are in slightly different positions, the smokes, the mollies, you're playing a live game of the ground is on fire and I'm blind in the face, and you're just trying to navigate through these labyrinths of utility that are constantly being erected around you. So I've never really been though upset about what he's done on T sides for them, because he's always just trying to fit the system of what needs to be done next. I always feel like if I'm watching anybody on that team, the guy that's looking at the radar the most is probably even Techno. I would even sometimes say more than Blitz when I'm watching like what they're doing versus how that corresponds to the macro elements of the team. I feel like he was the glue guy on the roster, whereas Blitz, he's calling his own number a lot, so he just has to focus on what's going on around him. But Techno was the guy where it's like, should he push on the extremity? Should he come back to the team? Should he wait a little bit longer for the teammates to catch up to him? I always feel like he always made the right plays for those. So rare that you see him just run out. Like, I think the only instance I really remember in recent history of Techno just being bad was kind of when all of the Mongols were collapsing against Vitality in the grand finals. And then you could really point to any single one of those players having bad moments. Like everybody was just throwing their lives away, walking through a smoke when they shouldn't. Like they were clearly shook. Like that's why we talk about pressure to this day regarding even the best teams in the biggest moments, because pressure can affect everybody differently. And we saw the capitulation of the Mongols on the biggest stage. But for them to even reach that stage, to beat, say, FaZe, Pain, and to now consistently beat elite, well, Vitality, I'm not going to say all the elite teams, but to beat elite teams around them. I guess Aurora's elite, so yeah, they beat Aurora, they beat in the Vitality twice. They look like a team that's a surefire pick to make it to the top 4 of every tournament now. I mean, it's astounding. The consistency is astounding, because even Gambit, major winning Gambit, wasn't this consistent around the time of their major victory. So you could even make the case that through the combined results of the Mongols for the past 9 months, including the Shanghai Major up to now, this is the best 9-month stretch that I've seen from an Asian team in my lifetime. So I still would be really curious to what Thorin says, because I don't really know. I look back at some of those results of those top 1.6 Asian teams, but I really have no context for, was that consistent? Were they just bombing out of others? Were they flukes? I'm not sure. I'm not really sure.
I will say, I know what he means colloquially when he says in his lifetime. All of these things happened during your lifetime.
Yeah.
You weren't born in like 2012 or whatever.
My professional lifetime. I
know what you mean. Especially you basically mean you followed the game. It's all good. No, the problem is this, right? Essentially, I will actually make, probably quite soon, maybe even by the time this videos come out, I will actually do a video on my channel. It was just an obvious one to do, about like shadow boxing, basically the Mongols' accomplishments this year against the greatest teams. Because spoiler, yeah, they are all from 1.6, all the teams that are the contenders. And I will say, I'm actually low-key glad. This is actually one of these bizarre things where, because I'm not particularly adept at streaming, like I only started doing it last year and I did it super scoffed, and in fact to this day I still don't even feature game footage. I just do me with a webcam, a bit like I do on my YouTube channel. Actually, believe it or not, there is a lost episode which would have been that video, but last year. But I'm actually glad I didn't make it then, because the difference was, back then they wouldn't have been the greatest. That was actually going to be the point of the video. So anyway, to answer Neo Kai's question quickly, but I'll have like a full video where essentially I will do exactly what Maui wants. I will basically take people on the Wikipedia through the teams that were the contenders, and I'll give you the context of, like, was this like a tournament where the other team skipped it? Was this like a good one-off fluke run? Did anyone respect this squad? Essentially, the answer is they probably are. But the key word is probably, which shows you that actually there's a discussion. Basically, the main team that will be their rivals is the team that's We Made Fox. And before that, the same core of players was just in a different organisation called Eastro. These were just both two famous Korean orgs that people don't know. Because those two teams, one of them, when they were We Made Fox, they actually won a Tier 1 event at the end of 1.6, which is very legit. And, they had all the teams there, NRV, MTW, for all the teams that, all the classic Sesame Street. And also, when they were Eastro, they actually, believe it or not, made a bunch of major finals even. They didn't win it, but that's actually quite comparable to what MongolZ just did now. But essentially, the reason why, if I go back, I would probably, for now, say MongolZ could be the best is because, one, CS is way bigger. Like, the scope of the game is crazy now. I mean, we have all things now that just did not exist in 1.6. Like, you do have boot camps. Everyone has coaches. Everyone's studying demos, by the way. Even that, think of all the apps people have now to run all... Like, if people don't know, this is how far behind fans are, by the way. If when fans speculate, what's a coach doing? Right, 10 years ago, everyone already had those apps where you watch the 3D version of the map with the bird's eye, and they can do stuff like load in 100 demos, and before they go live to watch their game, they can already know like the 5 main pistol rounds the other team does. That was 10 years ago. People had that tech, by the way. So actually, we don't get into it often because it's so like out left field, but there's so many more things. It's a bit like the discussion in sports when you ask, like, is someone now the GOAT? Well, the problem is, like, back then, you had to retire when you were like 30 in sports and you get the injury. Like the ACL famously used to just end your whole career. Now, if people don't know, Kevin Durant came back from one of those and still had all the same numbers. It was like unbelievable. So there's so many like tech evolutions that have changed things that I'd probably side it to MongolZ, because I would think in theory it should be harder to do it now. But essentially there were some very good teams back then who also had like some excellent play, but relative to the era. And I'll just say as well, the other reason why I think it's fair to say it that way is because if you all want to respect the old days like I do, well then you put fucking Neo's name back in that GOAT conversation. Stop telling me that Ziwu and Simple is the GOAT of all counting. video was fucking unbelievable, mate. And before you do that little noob shit thing with your little French mustache and tiny rolled cigarette where you go, I bet he has been number one for like 6 years. Yeah, look up Neo, fuckface. He was like top 2 for about 7 years or something, mate. Like, look up the number. Anyway, the point, don't get into that. The point, put that back on the shelf. That's all good. Anyway, that's going to be in my video. So basically, yeah, they are. And actually, like you did, Neo Kai, I actually have a similar version. I'll just run through quickly. The mistake people are going to make is forget where they were last year and that this year, we've had so many episodes of this show where our main complaint was Aurora and MongolZ just do awesome in the group stage and then bomb in the fucking playoffs every time. And in fact, that's what made people think the first season was weak when Vitality won it, because it looked like MongolZ and Aurora, like knockout teams that maybe even could have a chance versus you in the playoffs, but then they just give you a free win. So it felt like the top 10 was like a bit fake, you know, they were like the fake number 4, 5, and 6 whenever they were ranked there. But if you actually look now, because they're now like winning and actually making the final, bro, now their resume looks unbelievable this year. It's not just winning EWC and making the major final. They have had 7 top 4s. Like, that is ridiculous. Remember, if you can, by the way, forget even if you'd had those 2 results in the final, if you can make the top 4 7 times in a whole, like, season and a half or whatever of real professional Counter-Strike, these weren't all just PGLs, there was a couple of PGLs in there, that actually just means you are, like, the 3rd or 4th best team in the world. Like, that's how that works. Like, logically, if the other team can't ever make it there, it doesn't even matter if they win, like, one random event or something. Like in theory, on paper, you are better than Falcons. Maybe in a head-to-head, we all think, like, you know, some of their players are more skilled. It doesn't matter. The results say you actually are better than them. So that in itself is like amazing. You know, the joke is we're contrasting them with all of history. Like, actually, in the very here and now, they probably are like the 3rd or 4th best team. That's a real status. In fact, the teams that actually I'm more interested to see them play now, because by the way, there's another detail. Yeah, the problem was after the major, someone ran the stats, and there was they had a very unfortunate fact, which was they were terrible versus the top 5. Like, the ranking was, I think they won like 3 maps or something outrageous, and they barely ever beat the top 5 basically. Well, now they've beaten Vitality twice in a row, and they've won something like 4 of the last 5 maps. In fact, if you add in the major where they lost, they've won 5 of the last 8 maps against Vitality. Bro, that's the team of the year. Like, no, everyone else is like lucky to get a map off them or like have a chance to beat them. So there's another thing. I also think if you're the same people going, Vitality's really falling, they're only losing to MongolZ. They lost to Mouse once. Like, it's MongolZ that's getting them. Like, you'll give some props to MongolZ. It's not like Vitality's actually just like turning the mouse off, boys. Like, they're trying to shoot them. Just MongolZ is actually doing awesome. Like, yes, maybe they're dipping, but at the same time, you're taking advantage of it. I always say this, right? You know, kids love to use that phrase, you threw the game. This is more of a league point, but I'll say it in CS. You know when they go, you threw the game? It doesn't work that way. The other team has to be good enough to catch it. There's the analogy for you boys. There's plenty of teams that throw in the game, but they fucking win anyway. The joke is Vitality tried throwing a million games in Season 1. They're just so good they would trip over and win the game. You know what I mean? Or like Zero would accidentally click his mouse and get a 3K and then the game was won. Like, that's the nature of being elite. So when you're someone like MongolZ who used to come right up to the line and then lose all the time, it's a big deal to win these matches actually. That is actually progression. And I'm with you, because the key thing to me is this. Not only does that establish like consistency before these awesome results now, which is maybe form, and we'll see how much that lasts. But crucially, yeah, last year, they were group stage merchants, guys. Like, actually, they would barely... They used to do the same thing, but at a low level, what they'd do is they'd fuck up your group stage, and then they'd lose to, you know, whoever, and then that team would go to the playoffs, and you'd be like, what the fuck? I would beat them in the playoffs. It's like, you didn't beat the MongolZ, though. I mean, remember, last year, everyone laughed at Spirit because they lost to MongolZ Pro. Like, that at the time was like a joke team to lose to. Now that's fine. That's not even that big a deal. So, and then lastly, I'll just throw this out there, and I'll do a little run down the plate. First of all, one thing people have missed about this team actually is, bro, they actually on paper should be one of the best Mirage teams in the whole world now. Look at the results they have. By the way, they beat Vitality every time on that map. Like, that's pretty, they're cooking on that one. That's pretty legit. And obviously that is in theory, remember, the most played out map that everyone, well, in that case, they've nailed the fucking meta, haven't they, mate? Because that map, they're looking awesome on their T-sides nailed. Also for the players, I do think you see evolution when you just think of all the 5 players. So everyone knew, like on paper, with the eye test, you can see Senzu's unbelievable, right? Bro, he was like some Stound level choker until about like 2 or 3 months ago or something. Like, this guy used to routinely not only like fit, he just bottom frag the fucking match in the playoffs. But you see, when he's on his game, But I told Bowie this last year, it's obvious when this team gets good, this guy's going to be the top 20 player. This guy, like, if they do what they do now for the next few years, he's going to have that thing where he's going to be like top 20, top 10, by the way, if they ever keep this sort of a run up. Then you have people like, here's what it gets interesting in their team, though. I do think they have like one of those interesting squads where it's like people cover each other's weaknesses. Like, I actually think if I had to pick the real second best player, I would probably pick Blitz, because I actually do think the way he frags is really fucking sick. And he doesn't seem like he has any chalk in him, by the way. Whereas to me, 9-10 is more like that AWPer where it's like they win. They're like a Brokey AWPer for me. I think he wins you rounds and he does crazy plays. But first of all, he has a little bit of chalk in him. And then secondly, the reason I only say a little bit, not like Senzu is, I just don't think he's as good as Zewa and the rest of them. You know, it's not here. He's just not as good. You haven't got an option there. There's all the fucking player to come in who's some insane Mongolian AWPer, is it? So it's fine. And then the other two are the ones people always forget. Because I agree, actually. The Techno guy looks so obviously to me, Maui, like he's the Magics of their team. And his job is like complement the IGL and then do the other things and then do all the bullshit that all the other people who are 20 don't want to do in the team. And then if you think about, like, the weird thing to me was that the actual angle late last year as they made that run at the major, that looked like it was going to be, is it looked like it was going to be that Mazzinho became like a fucking fragger or something. He actually didn't. That was just like a brief period. He went back to being like one of the lesser players. But then in the meantime, the others sort of blossomed. And now, yes, you have a world where, look, I will say this. I have one minor rant. It's only going to be like 10 seconds. It goes like this. Right? Do you know if I said to someone, this person is the worst player in the team, right? That could be the best team of all time. Even the best team of all time, by definition, it's a relative term, has the worst player. But if you say he is the worst player on Mongols, people do that. No, he's a good player. Like, he's actually good. That's not what we're saying, are we? That's not what we're saying. So, unfortunately, and also they do the other thing that really tilts me, Maui, as someone, one, autistic, and two, who loves the English language. They go, stop saying that Techno is one of the worst players in Mongols. He plays a huge part in their success, right? If you know what the word huge and part mean, they can't all be playing a huge part. Otherwise, no one's playing a huge part, are they? Think it through. It isn't playing a huge part than Blitz and Sentinel. He isn't, is he? So logically, he's not playing the huge. So he's just playing a part. So anyway, the point is, they are just role players. But I will give you this, bro. That performance at EWC actually is even better than the Magic's one, because Magic's was only in the final, boys. Like, he actually, no joke, was carrying, and his stats are unbelievable for a role player. Like, this is a guy who normally is like a 0.6 KPR, 0.5 KPR player who got 0.8 KPR and was actually shooting the best players in the head. Look, I don't think it'll be like the Magic's one, I think. You don't think you'll see it again, but it was insane. I'll give you that. Like, that's one of those rare times where that isn't like back in the day. If people don't know, Taco once won an MVP in SK, but his stats weren't even as good as you can imagine as Cold Zeros. It's just that they were way better than what they normally would be. He was like a role player and suddenly had decent stats. So that wasn't that. This guy actually was the MVP. I have to say, you have to give it to him. Look at the roles he played and how he fragged. It might never happen again, but the point is that's for that tournament. I think it's legit. So, by the way, that's a great final point because, bro, if what for me is the worst player on their team, and I do think it's between him and Mazzinho, but if the worst player on your team can get MVP of a tier 1 event, even in a fluke, there's something going on there, mate. Like, this isn't just like, because think about this. Normally, when you're a team from a smaller region, it's more like, right, there's 1 or 2 good players here. I'm going to be a fan of that player, but actually, if anything, I hope he gets the fuck out and goes to, like, FaZe Clan or something. The actual whole team's actually pretty legit, which to tie back into what you guys pointed out is, that's why actually, whatever else he did, whoever it was in this team, whether it was Mara or Blitz, who really did come up with this mastermind plan to kick out all the established players and get a team with an average age of 20 and then think you're going to go like head-to-head with Tier 1. By the way, that probably should be like a fucking documentary or a movie or something. That sounds mental. That's like an insane ballsy gamble to go for. And then it worked. Like, mad props, yeah. On this, I think it's a good point, but there's no negative. Right now, everything's got all fucking arrows are pointing up, right? This is the best it could ever be, pretty much. Also, just insane, even though I don't think EWC is the level of Katowice and Close, still is a huge event in terms of money. I can tell you, by the way, just the money alone, a lot of teams want to win that event, of course. They're not just fucking giving you it for free. This isn't some of the smaller event, which you won't mention. This is everyone wants to win this one. Anyway, there you go. There's the Mongols rant.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.